So welcome to our discussion today on the educational requirements in order to obtain a CPA license and the process for registering for the CPA exam. My name is Kelly Olto. I am a faculty member in the Gabelli School of Business. I am joined today by a colleague of mine, also a faculty member and director of our Masters of Science in Accountancy program, our MSA, Dr. Barbara Porso, and two of our students currently registered in the MSA program, Amanda Bush and Kaylee Wong. To begin, I just want to make sure that we understand that anything we talk about today is based on our understanding of the process and some personal experience, but you should always check with your deans, your academic advisors, and the individual state that you are looking to be licensed in order to obtain the most final and most comprehensive rules and regulations for licensure. So before I pass it over to everyone, I would just like to remind you all that in order to be licensed in most states, you need 150 credit hours. The 150 credit hours are comprised of different mixes of accounting and business credits based on the state's requirements. And in many cases, the 150 credit hours can be obtained in many different ways. You do not necessarily need a graduate degree in order to have the 150 credit hours, but you can. You can obtain them from different institutions. You can get them through summer classes as long as the classes show up on a transcript. So there's a lot of different ways that you can obtain the credit hours. So if you take that route where you're getting them from different avenues, you need to be very conscious of the credits that fall under accounting, business, and other. So as we transition now our discussion into the way we can get 150 credit hours, I will pass it over to Dr. Porso, who will talk about our MSA program, one of the great ways that you can obtain the additional 30 credits.
Thank you, Professor Olto. I appreciate the opportunity to share some of the things that are important for students to consider as they pursue their future studies, whether it be in the accounting profession or if they're simply looking to have a better understanding of the type of educational requirements needed to be potentially licensure ready in any of the states in the United States. Let me share about Fordham, what we have. And this is not an easy task. One of the things I hold bragging rights to is that Fordham University was the first university in the state of New York to have licensure programs registered. And that will forever be our, I think, milestone. No one can ever take away being the first to do something. And since we've been doing this for so many years, we have a really deep understanding of how to work with the state, how to create programs that are optimal in terms of your learning experience. Graduating from Gabelli, you have four paths, if you will. You can pursue an undergraduate degree in public accounting, which sets you up very nicely to continue for another 30 credits in a master's program. You can major in a program which combines accounting and finance, which is applied accounting and finance program. Also sets you up beautifully to go on for another 30 credits. The third option is to major in a combination of accounting and information systems, and we call that program the AIS program, which is accounting and information systems. And that sets you up to continue to obtain additional 30 credits. And if you've noticed in those three situations, I've always used the word obtain an additional 30 credits. I've not said graduate credits, and I've done that deliberately because our fourth program is public accountancy. And that is a 150-hour program all in one. And that program is licensed with the state. And it enables you to apply directly to the state when you graduate Gabelli undergraduate. If you're curious, it has a licensing code. All my programs have licensing codes. If you study for 150 credit hours in our accountancy program, you simply graduate, and on your transcript, our bursar office is going to stamp 31172, and that's the only thing New York State needs to see, and you are ready to sit for the CPA exam. Well, you have to study a little bit. I think Amanda and Kaylee will share a little of that as well if you need some insights to the preparation for the exam itself. But let's stay focused. That is an option for all of you. And you don't need to decide that as a freshman, a sophomore, a junior. You can even decide that early on. You can decide that early on or later on, because the accountancy program is filled with different types of electives. That's one way. Let's go visit the other three that I mentioned, because each of those require you to go on for another 30 credits. 30 credits translates into 10 courses. You can graduate Gabelli with any of those programs and go on to our master's program, which I'm going to hold for just a moment because that's the one I really want to celebrate and speak the most about. But I do want to say that you can graduate from Gabelli and you can pursue the other 30 credits somewhere else. Two very important things I want you to know. If you pursue the other 30 credits somewhere else, if at any point you had taken a graduate school course while being an undergraduate, which is a program that we made official 2 years ago, and that enables our seniors to be enrolled in our graduate studies and get a head start in their program. Well, if you decide to graduate and go to another university, I don't know, Professor Alter, are there any universities in New York?
No, I don't think we might be the only one. No,
I've heard there's a school like in the Village. I think they call it NYU, and then there's one uptown, Columbia, maybe is the name. I don't know. Amanda, have you ever heard of either of them? Well, I think there are. This is the point. Any of those schools, they're all accredited, and they are wonderful institutions. They will not accept any credits as an undergraduate, whether you took graduate courses or not. So you are graduating from Gabelli and you will pursue those 10 classes somewhere else if you choose to. That's an important thing to know. The next thing I want you to realize is if you do that, you will have to work independently with the state of New York or any other state that you work with. There is no process that we have at Fordham that helps usher in that licensing preparation. So with that, I want you to think about how that's going to affect you. Does that mean that you will not be able to get licensed? Absolutely not. There are many of our students who graduate and some of them will go on and get additional 10 credits. Sometimes they'll wait. They won't even do it right away. That is something that happens. Does it happen easily? It all depends on who you ask. It all depends on where you go. And it all depends on the state of the administration in the state of New York. And depending on what we are experiencing outside the academic community, sometimes things take a lot longer. Now, those were two reasons that I want you to be aware of, which I feel might want you to rethink Gabelli and really rethink it, because not only will you have the experience of having fantastic classes, we have some really unique courses that were developed specifically for these programs. I teach a course in sustainability research and reporting. We have a course in derivatives and analytics for accounting, international tax and accounting, global financial risk. We have so many interesting, unique courses at the graduate level that I really feel will expand. And not only that, if you do them in a way that follows a program of study, not only will you get a master's from Gabelli, you will also have an additional certificate, kind of double dipping, but we've done it strategically. You graduate with a master's and you graduate with a certificate. And that looks wonderful on your resume. It looks fantastic when you post that to LinkedIn. If you choose to stay with Gabelli, you have opportunities to seek scholarship. And I'm going to ask if our students who are with us today, if they'd like to share any scholarship opportunities they've had. You will have a chance to work as a graduate assistant. Both the young ladies that are with us today work as graduate assistants for me and for Professor Alto. Those are wonderful financial opportunities to save the cost for education. Another thing, as a senior, you are allowed to take courses as an undergraduate that will count to your graduate degree. And as a result, reduce the amount of classes that you will need to take to graduate from Gabelli. You cannot do that in any other school. Once you leave here, you're guaranteed to have to take 10 classes because no institution can grant a degree with 10 classes, 30 credits. Out of that, they're not in fact accredited. We can do it because these are joint dual programs. We call them 4+1, but they are registered as one program. And that's very important for you to know. You can be a senior taking graduate courses. And if you've taken IP classes as an undergrad, AP classes as an undergrad, you're in a great position to do that. You can take classes over the summer. There are opportunities to do that, and give yourself that opportunity to take those graduate courses during a senior, reducing your requirements at Gabelli Graduate School. Working as a GA, opportunities to be involved with organizations like Net Impact, like Beta Alpha Psi, and continuing the experience that you have at Gabelli. These courses these programs that I have mentioned, they are all matched and licensed with the graduate school programs. And when you graduate with a Gabelli undergraduate degree and a Gabelli graduate degree, you simply have the Bursar office stamp. Each one of them is going to be a different one. For your AAF and Masters of Science, you're going to get a stamp that's going to say, you're 29, 612. You don't have to worry about anything. You're all set. Go study for the CPA exam. You are going to be in a wonderful position. Sometimes students say, you know what, I really want to go to another school because I think it'd be great to have another chance to network. I'm not saying that that won't happen, but I do want you to recognize something. Master's programs have very limited experiences for networking. Many of them have remote components. Many of them don't have other types of engagements that we do here at Gabelli, weekly meetings, interactions. So don't feel automatically by leaving Fordham, you're opening up a whole new world. It may, but it very well may not. And you're going to be taking a lot of classes that you might not have to take. You're going to have to deal with the state on your own. And you're not going to be able to continue to have the enriched experience that both myself and I know Professor Alto feel you could only get at Fordham. Professor Alto, did I share as much as I need to?
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Porso. That was a great explanation and enthusiasm for our program, of course. So let's pass it off to Kaylee and Amanda right now, and let's hear what they have to say about the topic.
And thank you.
First, to reiterate what Dr. Porso mentioned, I do think it is important to talk about both of our experiences as continuing students from undergrad. When I graduated from undergrad back in 2020, I had already completed 4 of my graduate level classes, which means I only had 6 courses remaining to complete my degree. Because I was able to split those courses over 2 semesters, I was able to have additional time to study for my CPA exam, which means I will likely be finishing all parts before I start full-time work. I think that's a really important thing to portray to you guys, just because it is nice being able to get some of those classes done when you're a senior and just kind of getting them out of the way. And so it's really a nice thing that you're able to do. And of course, I also was able to get a lot more additional financial assistance towards my graduate program. Being a GA offsets those things, and I would not have been able to do that at another institution without the connections that I had at Fordham, and also additional scholarship programs that they offer to continuing Gabelli students. So these are both really important points. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the eligibility to sit for the CPA exam itself. As Professor Alto mentioned earlier, it is very different for different states, so it's definitely important to consider what state you need to be licensed in. The state that you need to be licensed in is the state that you're planning on working in full-time when you graduate. So for me, I was from Arizona, lived in New York City, and I'm starting work in New York in August. So I was a bit confused if I should get certified in Arizona or New York, but definitely do wherever your full-time employment is planning to be or where it's set to be. All of the individual requirements you can find on the NASBA website. That's NASBA. So you can go there and you can click on each state and see what the specific requirements are. All of them similarly have the distinction between 120 credits and 150. So in almost all states, once you get to 120 credits, which is what most of you will have when you graduate undergraduate, you will be able to sit for the CPA exam. So you'll be able to start registering, send out for your NTS, which Amanda's going to talk a bit more about that process. So you can do that after you finish undergrad. There are a couple of states where you can't do that. So again, just check the website. But you can take all of those in between completing your 120 and your 150, which is through either a master's program or additional credits. And then there are also a few distinctions of courses that you have to have a certain number of accounting classes, a certain number of business classes, and then the rest of the credits can really be in anything. So just double check that website to see what those are, which is really simple to do. It really maps it out well. One clarification that really helped me in that process was anything that are your ACBU classes will count towards those accounting courses. Anything that is BLBU will count towards the business course requirements, and then everything else falls under the rest of the bucket to get you to 120 and 150. So just make sure you can pull up your transcript and you can just manually count through those, and that's the easiest way. So even things like commercial transactions, which might be required for an accounting degree, but falls under that BLBU bucket, will count towards business, but unfortunately doesn't count towards those specific accounting credits. But again, you can definitely, I know plenty of people who are become CPAs from all of the different majors and all different combinations of undergrad and masters, or undergrad and undergrad, who have reached it. So it's definitely possible at Fordham. Is that all there?
Yeah, no, thank you. And Kaylee, you brought up some great points, making sure that you go through your transcript with your dean and your academic advisors, because especially if you're looking for maybe outside of New York, you want to make sure you meet the requirements. For any of you that may be looking outside of New York, I want to assure you that Fordham has worked with a lot of students that have licensed out of New York, and we have been able to supply and offer classes that meet all of the requirements, even if they're very unique. So some states, for example, offer an advanced managerial class in accounting. We don't necessarily have that at the undergrad, but we do at the graduate school. So we've been able to work with students so they meet all of the requirements of the states. So we just want to assure you that. And the other thing, if I'll just put in your mind, that Kaylee mentioned, is that when you get licensed in a state, it is not impossible to transfer your license at some point. So don't think that you're tied to New York if you get licensed in New York for the rest of your life. There is something called reciprocity. And generally, New York is one of the toughest states to get licensed in. So if you're licensed in New York, it's a fairly simple process to transfer your license at some point of your career. So thank you, Kaylee, for raising those really great points. And we'll turn it over to Amanda to talk about the NTS.
Yes. Professor Alto, may I say one thing before Amanda shares her thoughts?
Sure.
I wanted to emphasize what you're saying, because I think it's very important. You do not need to be tied to one state. And Kaylee gave us great advice. I will tell you, if you join any of the big accounting firms, the partners in those firms are typically licensed in multiple states, because they need to sign off in many different client where they're incorporated. It's very common to have multiple states licensing. But when you first are sitting for that CPA exam, you need to connect yourself to one. And Kelly's advice about going to the one where you're going to work is the best one to manage. And one other thing, Professor Alta, that you said, and you said it a few times, we will work with you. And remember that we will work with you. If you stay with us for all your accounting experience, we will make sure you are licensure ready. We will make sure that you have exposure to the types of things that really meet your professional goals. Once you leave, we can certainly help you in the capacity and alumni base, but it is a different experience.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Pourceau. So Amanda, do you want to talk a little bit about the NTS?
Yes, hi. So similar to Kaylee, I also was able to get started on my graduate classes as a senior, which really helped me out this year, being able to complete the CPA as quickly as possible. So if you are looking to go to the master's program at Fordham, I would highly recommend trying to plan that out early and work out your timing. And you can, again, speak with your deans and advisors to help you do that. And financially as well, you do pay by the credit in grad school. So if you're able to knock those credits out early, it'll take the cost down a lot. So regarding the NTS, as Kaylee mentioned, you can start sitting for the CPA once you have 120 credits. So once you get those 120 credits, that's when you can start applying. So I would not recommend requesting your transcript or applying before you have those 120 credits. But once you do, you can go to the CPA Central website, and that is where you will actually apply. And there's a whole application process on there listing out your education information, your experience, various personal questions. You'll answer that all there. You also do have to submit a transcript. And so that you can find more specific information out about on the NASBA website, as Kaylee mentioned. But in order to submit the transcript, you're now able to do it electronically. I believe that'll be the case going forward too. So on MyFordham, you can go to it's under official transcript online ordering, and it'll take you to a clearinghouse website. And through there, you can request to send your transcript. There's also an additional program form that the NASBA website mentions, and you need to click off if you have completed 120 credits or 150 credits. You can submit that form. You have to fill out some parts on your own, and then you can submit it along with your transcript request for Fordham to fill out the rest of the form that they need to. So look into all that. Again, NASBA will give you the information on that, but request your transcript once you have the 150 credits, but also be aware that your NTS is only good for 6 months. So you really do want to be careful with your timing. You want to make sure once you get that, you're going to be taking the exam, be sitting for the exam within 6 months, because then it'll expire and you'll have to go through the whole process again. It also, your NTS can take, the first time you apply, could take up to about 6 weeks, even more sometimes. You have to be wary of that and give yourself enough time to receive it and to plan out when you're going to actually take the exam. But once you get your first NTS, then when you're applying for your additional ones after that for the other exams, it's a very quick turnaround time. So it's really just the first one you have to be aware of that for. And then otherwise, scheduling your actual appointment to take the exam once you receive your NTS. It's a very simple process. You do it directly on the Prometric website. So that's where the scheduling is. And when you get your NTS, you'll have an actual section ID for your exam that you can put in to schedule the exam. But if you want to just kind of look around and see what availability there is at different testing centers and different dates, you can there's a seat availability tool on the Prometric site that you can kind of just experiment with, put in different places. I really haven't had many issues. I'm currently living in New Jersey, and I've been able to go to different sites around New Jersey, but there's a bunch in New York City as well, I know, all over the city. So you have to give yourself enough time. You can't leave it too last minute the week before to schedule your exam, but you should be able to find a time, even if you have to go a little bit further. I also would recommend one thing I've noticed. Sometimes it doesn't show all the dates when you just see it right when you go to the website. If you click on see more availability at this center, you can sometimes find more dates than it even shows. So that's just kind of a little hint. But otherwise, it's a pretty easy process. The first time applying is definitely the hardest, but you'll get the hang of it for the next 3. Is that it, I think?
Yeah, that's it. Great. Thank you. That was great advice, Amanda. And I want to thank the 3 of you for having this conversation with me today. And I hope we have been helpful to everyone. And we are available for any questions or comments that you may want to reach out to us. You can reach out through our Fordham emails. And good luck.
Yes.